Imagine your world shattering in an instant. For Rachel Marin, that nightmare became reality when her 8-year-old twin daughters vanished without a trace during what was supposed to be a dream cruise vacation. 10 months of desperate searching led to nothing but fading hope and unanswered prayers. But then, a discovery on a remote beach changes everything. A suitcase washes ashore, containing remains and a chilling clue, a piece of evidence that could finally unravel the mystery. This isn't just a story of loss, it's a descent into a twisting investigation filled with shocking revelations. As Rachel races against time, each clue pulls her deeper into a web of secrets and potential danger. Will she find the truth, or will the ocean keep its secrets forever? Prepare for a roller coaster of emotions, heart-stopping suspense, and a mystery that will keep you guessing until the very end. Don't miss a single moment of this gripping story. Watch now to uncover the truth. And if you're on the edge of your seat, be sure to leave a comment below, smash that like button, and subscribe for more thrilling tales. The Ferris wheel, a skeletal giant against the azure canvas of the summer sky, cast long dancing shadows across the bustling county fair. The air thrummed with a chaotic symphony of laughter, the sizzle of frying food, and the tinny melodies of the carousel. It was the kind of day where time seemed to slow, each moment sticky sweet with the promise of endless fun. For 10-year-old twins, Emily and Chloe, it was paradise unleashed. Their matching sundresses, a vibrant yellow gingham, were already stained with the remnants of cotton candy, their faces alight with the pure, unadulterated joy that only a fair can offer. They darted through the throngs of people like schools of brightly colored fish, their mother, Sarah, trailing behind with a weary but indulgent smile, and their father, Mark, his hand never far from Chloe's shoulder. Emily, the bolder of the two, her laughter a shade louder, her eyes a touch brighter, pulled Chloe towards the swirling chaos of the Midway Games. "Come on, Chloe, I'm going to win that giant panda," Emily squealed, her grip tight on Chloe's hand. Chloe, ever the cautious one, hesitated, her gaze drawn to the shadowy depths of the funhouse looming nearby. An unsettling shiver traced its way down her spine, a prickle of unease amidst the joyous chaos. I don't know. It looks kind of scary," she murmured, her voice barely audible above the din. Emily rolled her eyes, a familiar gesture that spoke volumes of their twin dynamic. "Don't be such a scaredy cat. It's just a bunch of silly mirrors." Sarah intervened, her voice laced with a hint of exhaustion. "Girls, how about we play a few games, then we'll head over to the petting zoo. Your father promised you could feed the goats." The mention of the goats, their soft noses and bleating calls momentarily distracted Chloe. But as they weaved their way through the crowd, a sudden surge of bodies separated the twins. One moment, Emily was there, her yellow dress a flash of sunshine. The next, she was swallowed by the sea of strangers. "Emily!" Chloe's cry was lost in the cacophony. She spun around, her heart beginning to pound a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Mark tightened his grip on her hand, his eyes scanning the crowd with growing urgency. Sarah's face, moments before creased with a gentle smile, now contorted with a flicker of panic. "Emily! Where are you?" Sarah's voice, sharp with rising fear, cut through the noise. The next hour unfolded in a slow-motion nightmare. The vibrant colors of the fair seemed to fade, the joyous sounds morphing into a chorus of dread. Mark's booming voice, usually a source of comfort, now cracked with desperation as he called his daughter's name. Chloe, her small hand trembling in her father's, felt a cold knot of terror tighten in her stomach. It was as if the world had tilted on its axis, the familiar landscape of happiness replaced by a terrifying unknown. The last image Chloe held, burned into her memory with the searing intensity of a brand, was Emily's carefree smile as she pointed towards the funhouse. "Last one in's a rotten egg," Emily had declared, her voice ringing with the innocent challenge of childhood. Chloe had hesitated, a shadow of premonition flickering across her face. Those words, so light-hearted in the moment, would echo in Chloe's mind for years to come, each syllable a haunting reminder of the day the music died. Chicago's relentless energy, a constant hum of car horns and chattering crowds, was both a balm and a torment to Chloe. The city, with its towering skyscrapers and anonymity, offered a stark contrast to the small-town life she'd left behind, a life forever stained by the gaping hole of Emily's absence. Yet, even here, amidst millions of strangers, the echoes of that day at the fair reverberated through her soul. At 25, Chloe had carved out a quiet existence within the city's vibrant tapestry. She worked at the Book Nook, a charming independent bookstore tucked away on a side street, its shelves overflowing with the comforting scent of old paper and leather. It was a sanctuary, a place where she could lose herself in the stories of others, momentarily escaping the persistent ache of her own. Her days followed a predictable rhythm. She'd wake in her small, sparsely furnished apartment, the silence broken only by the distant wail of sirens. A quick breakfast of black coffee and toast, then the familiar commute on the L train, the faces of fellow passengers blurring into a monotonous stream. At the bookstore, she'd spent her hours shelving books, assisting customers with a polite but distant demeanor, and losing herself in the quiet corners during her breaks. Chloe was good at her job. She possessed an encyclopedic knowledge of literature and a quiet empathy that drew customers to her. But beneath the surface of her competence lay a deep-seated reserve. She kept her interactions brief, her smiles fleeting, her personal life a carefully guarded secret. Her apartment reflected this isolation. It was clean and organized, but devoid of warmth or personal touches. No photographs adorned the walls, no vibrant colors broke the monotony of the beige walls and simple furniture. It was a temporary space, a holding pattern, as if she were afraid to put down roots to truly belong. Evenings were the hardest. The city, which buzzed with life and connection for others, became a stark reminder of Chloe's solitude. She'd often eat a solitary meal at a small table by the window, the city lights painting fleeting patterns across her face. Sometimes she'd try to read, but the words would blur, her thoughts drifting back to the fair, to Emily's laughter, to the moment her twin vanished. Sleep offered little respite. Dreams, vivid and unsettling, would often pull her back to that day, forcing her to relive the panic and confusion. She'd wake with a start, her heart pounding, the silence of her apartment heavy and suffocating. Chloe carried Emily's absence like an invisible weight, a constant pressure on her chest. It had shaped her into a solitary figure, wary of connection, afraid to let anyone get too close lest they, too, be snatched away. The world, she had learned, was a precarious place, and happiness, a fragile illusion. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the aisles of the Book Nook, its warm light filtering through the large front windows and illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. Chloe was shelving a collection of vintage paperbacks, her fingers tracing the faded spines with a familiar tenderness, when a woman entered the store. At first, Chloe barely registered her presence, her mind still preoccupied with the quiet rhythm of her task. But then the woman paused near the poetry section, and Chloe's gaze snagged on her. It was a subtle thing, a flicker of recognition that sparked in the deepest recesses of her memory. The woman was tall and slender, with a cascade of auburn hair that framed her face in soft waves. She wore a simple denim jacket over a faded t-shirt and jeans, an unassuming outfit that blended seamlessly with the bookstore's bohemian vibe. But it wasn't her clothes that caught Chloe's attention. It was her posture, the way she tilted her head as she scanned the shelves, a familiar gesture that sent a jolt of something akin to electricity through Chloe's veins. Chloe found herself staring, her breath catching in her throat. The woman's profile, the delicate curve of her cheekbone, the slight upturn of her lips. It was like looking at a distorted reflection, a half-remembered dream. It was almost Emily. but not quite. Emily's eyes had been a vibrant green, sparkling with mischief. This woman's eyes were a softer hazel, holding a hint of melancholy that Chloe didn't recall in her sister. Emily's laughter had been a bright, infectious melody. This woman moved with a quiet grace, a certain reserve that seemed to hold the world at arm's length. Chloe's mind raced, a whirlwind of confusion and disbelief. Could it be? After all these years, could Emily be standing just a few feet away? The rational part of her brain screamed at the impossibility of it. It had been 15 years. People change. Memory is fallible. Yet, a stubborn instinct, a primal recognition that defied logic, whispered a different truth. There was something undeniably familiar about this woman, something that resonated with a deep, almost cellular level of knowing. Chloe watched, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird, as the woman picked up a volume of Sylvia Plath and began to read. Even the way she held the book, the angle of her head, the slight furrow of her brow in concentration. It was eerily reminiscent of Emily. A wave of dizziness washed over Chloe. She gripped the edge of the bookshelf, her knuckles turning white. She had to know. She had to find out. But how? How could she approach this stranger, this echo of her past, without sounding completely insane? Doubt gnawed at her. Maybe it was just a cruel trick of the light, a fleeting resemblance that her grief-stricken mind had amplified into something more. But the feeling persisted, a relentless tug on her soul that she couldn't ignore. Chloe took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. She would observe. She would listen. She would find a way to unravel this mystery, one careful step at a time. The woman, oblivious to Chloe's intense scrutiny, continued to read, lost in the world of words, while Chloe stood frozen, caught in the grip of a 15-year-old ghost. The next few days at the bookstore were a tightrope walk for Chloe. The woman with the auburn hair returned not just once but every afternoon, drawn to the quiet corners and the comforting embrace of literature. Chloe learned her name was Lily, a simple and unassuming name that seemed to both fit her and yet conceal something deeper. Chloe found herself drawn to Lily, a tentative curiosity blossoming amidst the thorns of her suspicion. Lily possessed a quiet intelligence, a sharp wit that surfaced in unexpected moments, and a surprising vulnerability that flickered in her eyes when she thought no one was watching. They talked about books, of course, their shared passion creating an easy bridge between them. Lily's taste was eclectic, ranging from classic novels to obscure poetry collections, and Chloe found herself captivated by her insightful interpretations and thoughtful observations. "Have you read Wuthering Heights?" Lily asked one afternoon, her fingers tracing the worn spine of a leather-bound edition. "There's such a raw intensity to it, a sense of untamed passion that both fascinates and repels me." Chloe, who had read the book countless times, found herself discussing it with a fresh perspective, drawn out of her shell by Lily's enthusiasm. "I've always been drawn to Kathy," Chloe admitted. "Her fierce independence, even when it's destructive. It's like she'd rather burn the world down than compromise her own heart." Their conversations flowed effortlessly, weaving through literary landscapes and philosophical musings. They discovered shared interests in old films, rainy day walks, and the comforting ritual of a good cup of tea. With each passing day, the invisible wall around Chloe seemed to soften, drawn down by Lily's gentle presence. But beneath the surface of their burgeoning friendship, Chloe's unease lingered. She studied Lily intently, cataloging every detail, searching for the ghost of Emily in her features and mannerisms. A certain tilt of the head, a way of biting her lip when deep in thought, a fondness for a particular type of music. Fragments of Emily surfaced like echoes in a cavern, both tantalizing and tormenting. Yet there were differences too, stark and undeniable. Beyond the change in eye color, there was a subtle shift in Lily's demeanor. Where Emily had been impulsive and exuberant, Lily was measured and introspective. She spoke little of her past, deflecting personal questions with a polite but firm redirection. It was as if a part of her life was a closed book, its pages sealed tight. One afternoon, as Lily browsed the art section, Chloe noticed a thin, pale scar tracing a delicate line across Lily's left wrist. It was partially concealed by her bracelet, but in a moment of unguarded movement, it became visible. Chloe's breath hitched. Emily had fallen from a tree once, scraping her wrist badly. The image of the wound, angry and red, flashed in Chloe's memory. The urge to ask, to demand answers, surged within Chloe, threatening to overwhelm her carefully constructed composure. But fear held her back. Fear of being wrong, of shattering this fragile connection, of facing a truth she might not be ready to accept. So Chloe remained silent, trapped in a vortex of hope and doubt, observing Lily from behind a carefully constructed mask of normalcy, desperately searching for her lost twin in the eyes of a stranger. As Chloe's connection with Lily deepened, the past began to claw its way back into her present. The fragile dam she had built against her childhood memories began to crack, and fragments of that fateful day at the fair resurfaced with increasing intensity. Snatches of sound, the shrill whistle of the carousel, the booming voice of the game barker, Emily's infectious laughter, echoed in her mind, unbidden and vivid. Images flickered behind her eyelids when she closed her eyes. The swirl of colors on the Ferris wheel, the sticky sweetness of cotton candy, the shadowy maw of the fun house. The most persistent memory, however, was the feeling, the suffocating panic that had gripped her when Emily vanished, the groundlessness that had swallowed her whole. It was a visceral sensation, a cold knot of dread that tightened in her stomach and left her breathless. These flashbacks disrupted Chloe's carefully constructed routine. She'd find herself lost in thought, her gaze drifting away mid-conversation, her fingers trembling as she reached for a book. The once comforting silence of her apartment now felt haunted by the ghosts of her past. Seeking a lifeline, Chloe resumed therapy. Dr. Evelyn Reed was a calm, empathetic presence, her office a haven of soft lighting and soothing tones. Chloe had seen her on and off over the years, but now the sessions took on a new urgency. "It's like she's a ghost," Chloe confessed, her voice thick with emotion. "Lily, she's so familiar, but also different. I keep waiting for the mask to slip, for Emily to emerge, but it doesn't happen." Dr. Reed listened patiently, her expression gentle and non-judgmental. "Chloe, it's understandable that you're experiencing such intense feelings. The disappearance of a sibling is a profound trauma, and it can leave lasting scars." "But is it normal to feel this obsessed?" Chloe asked, her hands twisting in her lap. "To scrutinize her every move, searching for proof?" "Obsession is a strong word," Dr. Reed countered softly. "Perhaps it's more accurate to describe it as a heightened awareness, a need to reconcile the present with the unresolved past. You're seeking closure, Chloe, and that's a natural human response." They delved into Chloe's memories of Emily, exploring the dynamics of their twin relationship, the shared experiences, and the subtle differences that had always defined them. Chloe spoke of Emily's boldness, her infectious energy, and the way she had always drawn Chloe out of her shell. "Emily was like the sun," Chloe said, a faint smile touching her lips. "She was warm and bright and fearless. I was always more drawn to the shadows, more comfortable in the quiet corners." "And what about Lily?" Dr. Reed prompted. "Where does she fit into this spectrum?" Chloe paused, considering. "Lily. She's like the moon, I guess. Still beautiful, still luminous, but with a quiet strength, a sense of mystery. Sometimes I feel like I recognize her more than I ever recognized Emily." The realization hung in the air, heavy with implication. Was it possible that, in her grief, Chloe had idealized Emily, creating a perfect image that no living person could match? And was she now projecting that idealized image onto Lily, hoping to resurrect a ghost? Dr. Reed offered no easy answers, but her calm presence and insightful questions provided Chloe with a safe space to explore the labyrinth of her emotions. "The most important thing, Chloe," Dr. Reed said gently, "is to allow yourself to feel, to acknowledge the pain, the confusion, the hope, and the fear. It's okay to be uncertain. It's okay to grieve. And it's okay to open yourself up to the possibility of connection, even if it feels terrifying." As Chloe left Dr. Reed's office, the city lights seemed to blur through her tears. The past and the present swirled within her, a chaotic dance of memory and longing. She was no closer to understanding the truth about Lily, but she was beginning to understand herself. And perhaps that was a start. As Chloe and Lily's connection deepened, subtle inconsistencies and evasions in Lily's behavior began to prick at Chloe's growing sense of unease. What had initially seemed like shyness or reserve now took on a different hue, casting a shadow of suspicion over their burgeoning friendship. Lily remained stubbornly vague about her past. When Chloe gently inquired about her family or her childhood, Lily would deflect the questions with a practiced ease, changing the subject with a disarming smile or a self-deprecating joke. "Oh, my family's scattered all over," she'd say, her tone light but firm. "It's just me and the open road, you know." Or, "Childhood, let's just say it was eventful. Much more interesting to talk about books, don't you think?" These evasions, while subtle, began to erode Chloe's trust. It was as if Lily was carefully curating a persona, revealing only what she wanted Chloe to see, keeping the rest shrouded in mystery. The scar on Lily's wrist became a focal point of Chloe's growing obsession. She found herself stealing glances at Lily's arms, searching for other marks, for any clue that might unlock the secrets of her past. One afternoon, as Lily reached for a high shelf, her sleeve slid up, revealing a series of faint, pale lines running along her inner forearm. They were old, faded, but undeniably there. Chloe's breath caught in her throat. The implications of those scars sent a shiver of unease down her spine. A dark wave of scenarios crashed over her. The incident at the funhouse replayed in her mind. Chloe started having nightmares again. Lily's guardedness, the scars, the fragmented memories, it all coalesced into a growing sense of dread. Was it possible that Lily was not who she claimed to be? Was it possible that Chloe was forging a connection with a stranger, a woman whose past was steeped in secrets and perhaps even danger? Chloe found herself pulling back, a subtle shift in her demeanor that even Lily seemed to notice. She became less open, less willing to share her own thoughts and feelings. The easy flow of their conversations became stilted, punctuated by awkward silences. "Is everything all right, Chloe?" Lily asked one afternoon, her brow furrowed with concern. "You seem distant." Chloe forced a smile, her heart pounding in her chest. "Everything's fine, just a lot on my mind, that's all." But it wasn't fine. Chloe was caught in a vortex of conflicting emotions. The longing for her sister warred with a growing fear of the unknown. The desire for connection clashed with a deep-seated instinct for self-preservation. The bookstore, once a sanctuary, now felt like a battleground, the air thick with unspoken questions and mounting suspicion. Chloe knew she couldn't continue like this. She had to find out the truth, no matter the cost. Chloe's apartment, usually a refuge of solitude, felt suffocating. The silence pressed in on her, amplifying the turmoil within. She needed a distraction, something to pull her out of the spiraling vortex of doubt and suspicion. She decided to delve into the past, to revisit the remnants of her childhood, hoping to find a solid anchor in the shifting sands of her present. She pulled out a dusty box from the back of her closet, its cardboard worn and faded, the contents a jumble of faded photographs, childish drawings, and forgotten trinkets. As she sifted through the relics of her youth, a particular photograph caught her eye. It was a snapshot taken at a birthday party, the twins beaming at the camera, their faces smeared with frosting, their arms intertwined. Emily's left hand was prominently displayed, and Chloe's breath hitched. There, just above Emily's wrist, was a small, distinct mole. It was a tiny imperfection, a freckle-like mark that Chloe had almost forgotten, yet it was undeniably there. A shiver ran through her as she remembered the pale scar on Lily's left wrist, a scar that could easily have obscured or even erased such a small mark. The photograph became a tangible link to the past, a stark contrast to the elusive present. The carefree joy in Emily's eyes seemed to mock Chloe's current confusion and fear. The past and the present collided in her hand, the faded image a catalyst for a decision that had been brewing in the depths of her soul. Chloe knew what she had to do. She could no longer exist in this agonizing limbo of uncertainty. She had to confront Lily, to demand answers, to finally unravel the mystery that had haunted her for 15 years. The fear was still there, a cold knot in her stomach, but it was overshadowed by a fierce determination. She would no longer be a passive observer, a prisoner of her own doubts. She would take control of her narrative, even if it meant facing a truth that could shatter her world. She carefully placed the photograph in her purse, a tangible piece of evidence, a silent witness to the impending confrontation. As she looked at her own reflection in the smudged glass of the photograph frame, Chloe saw a flicker of something she hadn't seen in a long time: resolve. The years of grief and uncertainty had etched lines on her face, but beneath them, a steely glint in her eyes mirrored Emily's long-lost boldness. Chloe was ready to face the past, to confront the present, and to finally seek the truth, no matter how painful it might be. The bookstore was quiet that evening, the usual hum of browsing patrons replaced by an unsettling stillness. Chloe had arrived early, her heart pounding a frantic tattoo against her ribs. She arranged books with a mechanical precision, her mind racing, replaying the possible scenarios, the potential reactions. Lily arrived right on time, her face alight with her usual warm smile. "Hey," she said, her voice soft. "Ready for that new poetry collection? I've been dying to hear your thoughts." Chloe's carefully constructed facade threatened to crumble. She clutched the photograph in her purse, its edges digging into her palm. "Lily," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "there's something I need to ask you." Lily's smile faltered, a flicker of apprehension crossing her features. "Okay," she said cautiously. "What is it?" Chloe took a deep breath, her gaze locking with Lily's. "Do you have any memories, any at all, of a county fair, about 15 years ago?" Lily's eyes widened, a flash of confusion quickly replaced by a guarded expression. "A county fair? No, I don't think so. Why?" Chloe's hand tightened on her purse. "And this?" She pulled out the photograph, her finger pointing to the small mole on Emily's wrist. "Does this look familiar?" Lily stared at the photograph, her face paling visibly. I don't know what you want me to say. It's a picture of two little girls." "It's a picture of my sister and me," Chloe said, her voice rising with a desperate edge. "My twin sister, Emily, the one who disappeared." The air in the bookstore crackled with tension. The weight of 15 years of unanswered questions hung heavy between them. Lily recoiled, her eyes darting around as if searching for an escape route. "Chloe, I think you're mistaken. I'm not Emily." Her voice was firm, but Chloe detected a tremor beneath the surface. "But the scar," Chloe pressed, her voice pleading. "The scar on your wrist, the way you tilt your head when you're thinking, the way you—" Her voice trailed off, choked with emotion. Lily shook her head vehemently. "It's a coincidence. People have similarities. It doesn't mean anything." Chloe stepped closer, her voice barely a whisper. "Please, Lily, just tell me the truth. Is it you?" Lily's carefully constructed composure began to crumble. Her shoulders slumped, and her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and something akin to grief. "Okay," she finally whispered, her voice barely audible. "Okay, it's me." The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of revelation. Chloe felt a wave of dizziness wash over her, a strange mix of relief and disbelief. After 15 years, she had found her sister. But the girl standing before her was a stranger, a fractured echo of the twin she remembered. "My name is Emily," Lily said, her voice thick with emotion. But I don't remember much. Not from then." Fragments of memory surfaced, disjointed and hazy. The lights, so bright. The music. A man. A hand. Lily's voice trailed off, her eyes wide with confusion and fear. Chloe reached out, her hand trembling as she touched Lily's arm. "It's okay," she whispered. "It's okay. We'll figure it out together." But even as she spoke the words, she knew that the journey ahead would be fraught with pain, confusion, and the daunting task of piecing together a broken past. The revelation hung in the air, thick and heavy, a fragile truth threatening to shatter into a million pieces. Chloe reached out to Lily, a tentative gesture of connection, a desperate attempt to bridge the chasm of 15 lost years. Lily," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "It's okay. We're together now. We can figure this out." But Lily recoiled, her body trembling, her eyes wide with a primal fear that Chloe didn't understand. "No," she gasped, her voice barely audible. "No, it's not okay. You don't understand." "Understand what?" Chloe pleaded, her heart pounding with a growing sense of dread. "What's wrong?" Lily's gaze darted around the bookstore, as if searching for an escape route. I can't be here. Not like this." "But why?" Chloe cried, her voice rising in desperation. "I'm your sister. I've been looking for you for 15 years." "I know," Lily exclaimed, her voice laced with panic. "And that's why I have to go. I can't face this. Not yet." Before Chloe could react, Lily turned and fled. She darted through the aisles of the bookstore, her movements swift and desperate, a hunted creature seeking refuge. Chloe stumbled after her, calling her name, her pleas echoing through the empty space. "Lily! Emily! Please wait!" But Lily didn't stop. She burst through the front door, disappearing into the anonymity of the city streets, leaving Chloe standing alone, her heart shattered into a million pieces. Despair washed over Chloe, a crushing wave of grief and confusion. She had finally found her sister, only to have her slip away again like a phantom in the night. The bookstore, once a place of solace, now felt like a tomb, filled with the ghosts of what might have been. But amidst the despair, a flicker of determination ignited within Chloe. She would not give up. She had come too far, endured too much to let Emily disappear again. She would find her sister, no matter the cost. She would unravel the mysteries of the past, even if it meant confronting a darkness she couldn't yet comprehend. Chloe closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and allowed the city's relentless energy to infuse her with a renewed sense of purpose. She would use that same energy to fuel her search, to navigate the labyrinth of the unknown, and to bring her sister home. The first step was to understand why Lily had run. What was she so afraid of? What secrets was she hiding? And what fragments of the past held the key to unlocking the truth? Chloe's journey had just begun, and the path ahead was shrouded in shadows. But she would walk it, one step at a time, driven by the unbreakable bond of sisterhood and the unwavering hope that one day she would finally bring Emily home. Chloe returned to her hometown, a place she had fled years ago, seeking solace in the anonymity of the city. Now she was back, not as the grieving sister, but as a woman on a mission, driven by a desperate need to find her missing twin and unravel the tangled web of the past. The familiar streets, once a source of comfort, now felt oppressive, each corner whispering echoes of loss and unanswered questions. Her childhood home stood as a silent sentinel, its paint peeling, its once vibrant garden overgrown with weeds. Her parents, Sarah and Mark, greeted her with a mixture of relief and trepidation. The years had etched deep lines on their faces, and a palpable tension hung heavy in the air, a constant reminder of the unresolved tragedy that had fractured their family. Chloe's investigation began subtly. She started by revisiting the places that held the most vivid memories of Emily. Their old school, the park where they used to play, the now-defunct ice cream parlor where they celebrated birthdays. Each location sparked a flood of emotions, a bittersweet mix of joy and sorrow, but also a growing sense of unease. She noticed inconsistencies in her parents' recollections of that day at the fair. Details shifted, timelines blurred, and a strange reluctance to discuss certain aspects of the event became apparent. It was as if a silent agreement existed between them, a carefully constructed narrative designed to conceal a deeper truth. One evening, while helping her mother sort through old family photos, Chloe stumbled upon a series of letters hidden in the back of a dusty album. The letters were addressed to Sarah, written in a flowing, unfamiliar script, and dated in the months leading up to Emily's disappearance. Sarah's reaction was immediate and fierce. She snatched the letters from Chloe's hand, her face flushed, her voice trembling. "Those are private," she snapped, her eyes filled with a mixture of anger and fear. "You shouldn't have been snooping." Chloe was stunned. She had never seen her mother so agitated. "I wasn't snooping, Mom," she said, her voice calm but firm. "I was just trying to understand, to find Emily." Sarah turned away, her shoulders slumped. "There's nothing to understand," she muttered. "It was an accident, a terrible, tragic accident." But Chloe knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her bones, that it was more than just an accident. The evasiveness, the hidden letters, the unspoken tension. They all pointed to a deeper conspiracy, a secret buried beneath layers of grief and denial. Driven by a relentless need for the truth, Chloe began to dig deeper. She revisited the local library, poring over old newspaper articles and police reports from the time of Emily's disappearance. She interviewed former neighbors, old friends, and even some of the fairground workers who had been present that day. With each new piece of information, the puzzle became more complex, the shadows of doubt growing longer. She discovered that her parents had been under immense financial strain at the time, facing the threat of losing their house. She learned of a heated argument between her parents the night before the fair, a fight she had overheard as a child but whose significance she was only now beginning to grasp. And then there was the funhouse, the shadowy, disorienting maze that had been the last place Emily was seen. Chloe found that several other children had reported feeling uneasy or frightened in the funhouse that day. One girl even claimed to have seen a strange man lurking in the shadows, a detail that had been dismissed by the authorities at the time. As Chloe pieced together the fragments of the past, a disturbing picture began to emerge, a picture of a family teetering on the edge, secrets simmering beneath the surface, and a community eager to forget the tragedy that had shattered their sense of security. Chloe realized that finding Emily was not just about retracing her steps on that fateful day. It was about confronting the darkness within her own family, about unearthing the hidden truths that had been buried for 15 years. And she knew, with a growing sense of dread, that the answers she sought might be more terrifying than she could ever imagine. Chloe's search for Lily became a relentless pursuit, fueled by a mixture of desperation and a fragile hope that flickered in the darkness. She knew that Lily's fear was a wall she had to break through, a barrier built from years of trauma and hidden secrets. To do that, Chloe needed to understand the life her sister had built, the path that had led her away from their shared past. Her first solid lead came from a faded photograph Lily had inadvertently dropped during their brief confrontation at the bookstore. It was a picture of Lily standing in front of a mural, a vibrant explosion of colors depicting a phoenix rising from ashes. A quick online search revealed the mural's location, a small arts district in Asheville, North Carolina, a city known for its bohemian atmosphere and artistic community. Asheville was a world away from the familiar streets of her hometown and the stark anonymity of Chicago. The air was thick with the scent of pine and mountain wildflowers, and the city pulsed with a creative energy that both intrigued and unsettled Chloe. It was a place where someone could easily disappear, reinvent themselves, and forge a new identity. Chloe started her search in the arts district, showing Lily's photograph to local artists, gallery owners, and the quirky vendors who lined the streets. Most people shook their heads, their faces blank with indifference. But then, a young woman with vibrant purple hair and paint-splattered overalls recognized Lily. "Lila," the woman said, her eyes widening with recognition. "Yeah, I know Lila. She used to come around here all the time. Great singer, played at a few of the open mic nights." Chloe's heart leaped with hope. "Do you know where I can find her?" The woman hesitated, a shadow of concern crossing her face. She's not around anymore. Left town a few months back. Said she needed a change of scenery." "Do you know where she went?" Chloe pressed, her voice urgent. The woman shrugged. "No idea. Lila was always a bit of a mystery. Kept to herself, you know, but she was talented. Really talented." Disappointment crashed over Chloe, but she refused to give up. She spent the next few days scouring Asheville, following the faint trail Lily had left behind. She visited the coffee shops Lily frequented, the music venues where she performed, the small apartment she had once called home. With each new encounter, a fragmented picture of Lily's life began to emerge. Chloe learned that her sister had indeed reinvented herself, shedding the name Emily and embracing a new identity as Lila, a singer-songwriter with a haunting voice and a troubled past. She discovered that Lily had struggled with periods of homelessness and addiction, haunted by nightmares and flashbacks she couldn't explain. She had found solace in music, pouring her pain and longing into raw, emotional songs that resonated with a small but devoted following. Chloe also learned about a woman named Martha, a kind-hearted owner of a local bookstore who had taken Lily in during her darkest hours. Martha had provided Lily with a safe haven, a place to heal and find her footing. Chloe found Martha's bookstore, a cozy haven filled with the scent of old paper and the gentle hum of conversation. Martha greeted Chloe with a warm smile, but her eyes clouded with sadness when Chloe showed her Lily's photograph. "Lila," Martha whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Oh, my poor Lila. I always knew there was a darkness in her, a wound she couldn't heal." Martha revealed that Lily had been in and out of foster care as a teenager, bounced from one unstable home to another. She had no memory of her biological family, no anchor to her past. The only thing she had was a recurring dream, a fragmented image of a carousel and a feeling of overwhelming loss. As Chloe listened to Martha's story, a horrifying realization dawned on her. Lily's fear, her desperate need to escape, it wasn't just about the trauma of her disappearance. It was about a lifetime of abandonment, of instability, of never truly belonging. Chloe understood then that finding Emily was not just about reuniting with her sister. It was about piecing together the shattered fragments of her identity, about giving her back the past that had been stolen from her. And Chloe knew, with a fierce determination, that she would not rest until she had brought Lily home, not just to herself, but to the family she had never known. Chloe's relentless pursuit led her to a small, unassuming house on the outskirts of Asheville. It was the home of Evelyn, the woman who had fostered Lily for several crucial years during her adolescence. Evelyn was a quiet, reserved woman, her eyes holding a deep well of sadness and a hint of something akin to guilt. The air inside the house was heavy with the scent of lavender and old memories. Framed photographs lined the walls, each capturing a fleeting moment in Lily's tumultuous teenage years. Chloe saw glimpses of her sister's struggle, a defiant glare in one photo, a fragile smile in another, a constant undercurrent of pain etched on her face. Evelyn offered Chloe a cup of tea, her hands trembling slightly as she poured. "Lila, she was a broken bird when she came to me," Evelyn said, her voice barely above a whisper. "So much anger, so much fear. She wouldn't talk about her past, only those nightmares." "Nightmares?" Chloe asked, her voice tight with anticipation. "Terrible ones," Evelyn confirmed. "She'd wake up screaming, always the same things. Bright lights, loud music, a feeling of being lost. And a man, she always mentioned a man." A chill ran down Chloe's spine. The fragments of Lily's memories, the echoes of the funhouse, they were beginning to coalesce into a terrifying picture. "Evelyn," Chloe began, her voice steady but firm, "I need to know everything you remember about Lila's past. Anything at all that might explain why she doesn't remember her family." Evelyn hesitated, her gaze drifting to a framed photograph of Lily holding a guitar, her face filled with a rare moment of peace. "There's not much I know," she said slowly. "Lila was found wandering on the outskirts of town when she was about 12. She had no identification, no memory of who she was or where she came from." "Found?" Chloe pressed. "By whom?" "A kind couple, the Millers," Evelyn explained. "They took her in, tried to give her a good home, but Lila was difficult, rebellious, always searching for something she couldn't name." Evelyn revealed that Lily's amnesia was not a complete blank slate. There were flashes, fragments of memory that surfaced sporadically, triggered by certain sights, sounds, or smells. But these fragments were disjointed, confusing, and often terrifying. "She remembered the music," Evelyn said, her voice laced with sadness. "The loud, chaotic music of a fairground. And the lights, the flashing, disorienting lights. It was like her mind was trapped in a kaleidoscope of fear." Then Evelyn dropped a bombshell. "There was also the fall," she said, her voice barely audible. "The Millers told me that Lila had a severe head injury shortly before she was found. She fell from a significant height, they believed." Chloe's mind raced. The funhouse, the shadowy figures, the fall. A horrifying possibility began to take shape in her mind. "Evelyn," she asked, her voice trembling slightly, "did Lila ever mention a specific ride? Anything about where she might have fallen?" Evelyn closed her eyes, her brow furrowed in concentration. After a long moment, she whispered, "She sometimes talked about mirrors, distorted reflections, a place where you could get lost." The funhouse, the hall of mirrors, the pieces of the puzzle clicked into place with a sickening finality. Chloe realized with a chilling certainty that Emily's disappearance was not just a tragic accident. It was the result of a devastating incident within the funhouse, an event that had robbed her sister of her memory and cast her adrift in a world of darkness and confusion. But what had truly happened in that shadowy maze? Was it truly just an accident? And was it possible that the secrets of that day were still lurking in the shadows, waiting to be unearthed? Chloe found Lily in a small secluded cabin nestled in the Blue Ridge Mountains. It was a place Lily had retreated to, seeking solace and escape from the overwhelming weight of her rediscovered past. The cabin was rustic, a far cry from the anonymity of the city, but it offered a breathtaking view of the misty peaks, a stark contrast to the internal turmoil that raged within Lily. Chloe approached the cabin with a mixture of trepidation and hope. Her heart pounded in her chest, a frantic drumbeat against the silence of the woods. She knocked gently on the door, her knuckles trembling slightly. Lily opened the door, her eyes widening in surprise and a flicker of fear. For a moment, neither sister spoke, the years of separation and the weight of their shared trauma hanging heavy in the air. "Chloe," Lily finally whispered, her voice barely audible. "Lily," Chloe replied, her voice thick with emotion. "It's me." The reunion was not the joyous homecoming Chloe had once imagined. It was a tentative dance of hesitant steps and unspoken anxieties. Lily was fragile, her emotions raw and exposed, her memories still fragmented and shrouded in darkness. Chloe, in turn, was guarded, her heart aching with a mixture of empathy and a deep-seated fear of losing her sister again. They sat on the porch, overlooking the vast expanse of the mountains, the silence broken only by the chirping of crickets and the rustling of leaves. Chloe shared the discoveries she had made, the evidence that pointed to a connection between their past and the sinister events surrounding the newspaper kiosk owner. Lily listened intently, her face pale, her eyes filled with a mixture of disbelief and horror. "It's like a nightmare," Lily whispered, her voice trembling. "All of those years, searching for something, not knowing what it was, and now this." "I know it's hard," Chloe said gently, reaching out to take Lily's hand, "but we're together now, we'll face it together." But facing it proved to be a daunting task. Lily was haunted by flashbacks, vivid and terrifying fragments of memory that resurfaced without warning. She would wake up screaming, her body drenched in sweat, reliving the terror of the funhouse, the confusion, and the overwhelming sense of loss. Chloe, in turn, struggled with her own emotions. She felt a fierce protectiveness towards Lily, a burning desire to shield her from further pain, but she also felt a deep well of anger, a resentment towards the years they had lost, the experiences they had been denied. The conversations between the sisters were often fraught with tension, punctuated by long silences and unspoken accusations. They argued about the past, about the future, about the very nature of their relationship. "You don't understand," Lily would cry, her voice filled with frustration. "You had a life, a family. I had nothing." "But you had me," Chloe would counter, her voice pleading. "I never stopped looking for you." Slowly, painstakingly, they began to navigate the treacherous terrain of their shared history. They shared stories, memories, and dreams, weaving together the fragments of their separate lives into a tapestry of shared experience. Chloe told Lily about their childhood, about their parents, about the love and the loss that had shaped their family. Lily, in turn, shared her struggles, her triumphs, and the music that had become her lifeline. Forgiveness was not easy. It was a long and arduous process, marked by setbacks and moments of despair. But slowly, tentatively, they began to heal. They learned to listen to each other, to empathize with each other's pain, and to find solace in their shared bond. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Lily picked up her guitar. She began to play a haunting melody, her voice soaring through the stillness of the mountains. It was a song of loss, of longing, but also of hope and resilience. Chloe listened, tears streaming down her face, her heart filled with a mixture of grief and a profound sense of connection. In that moment, she knew that they would make it through. They would overcome the pain of the past and build a future together, stronger and more resilient than ever before. The road ahead would be long and challenging, but they would walk it together, sisters bound by an unbreakable bond, forged in the fires of loss and tempered by the promise of hope. The reunion with their parents was a far cry from the Hallmark movie moment Chloe might have once naively envisioned. It was raw, messy, and fraught with the weight of years of unspoken grief and buried secrets. The mountain cabin, which had become a sanctuary for the sisters, now transformed into a battleground of emotions, a place where the past refused to stay buried. Sarah and Mark arrived, their faces etched with a mixture of hope and trepidation. Seeing Emily, alive but changed, was a shock to their system. The years had stolen their vibrant daughter and replaced her with a woman scarred by trauma, her eyes holding a haunting echo of the little girl they had lost. The initial embrace was awkward, hesitant. Tears were shed, but they were tears of grief as much as joy. Tears for the lost years, for the shattered dreams, for the family that had been irrevocably broken. The first few days were a minefield of unspoken accusations and carefully worded questions. Chloe and Lily, united in their search for the truth, confronted their parents with the inconsistencies in their memories, the hidden letters, and the lingering suspicion that they knew more than they had revealed. "Why didn't you tell us about the argument?" Chloe demanded, her voice trembling with anger. "Why did you keep those letters hidden?" Sarah and Mark recoiled, their faces etched with guilt and defensiveness. "We were trying to protect you," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. "We didn't want you to know the truth, the ugliness of it all." "The truth?" Lily interjected, her voice sharp. "The truth that our family was falling apart? The truth that you were so consumed with your own problems that you couldn't even protect your own children?" The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of years of resentment. Mark stepped forward, his face etched with pain. "That's not fair," he said, his voice cracking. "We loved you girls. We did the best we could." "Your best wasn't good enough," Lily retorted, her gaze unwavering. "Because of you, I lost 15 years of my life. I grew up without a family, without a home." The accusations flew back and forth, fueled by grief, anger, and the desperate need to understand. The carefully constructed facade of their family shattered, revealing the cracks and fissures that had been hidden for so long. Chloe found herself caught in the middle, torn between her loyalty to her parents and her fierce protectiveness of Lily. She tried to mediate, to bridge the chasm of pain that separated them, but the task felt impossible. Slowly, painfully, the truth began to emerge. Sarah and Mark, forced to confront their past, revealed the financial struggles, the marital discord, and the overwhelming pressure that had plagued their family in the months leading up to Emily's disappearance. They admitted their guilt, their regrets, and the burden of silence they had carried for so long. "We were afraid," Sarah confessed, her voice thick with tears. "Afraid of what the truth would do to you girls, afraid of what it would do to us." "But the silence did even more damage," Chloe said softly. "It poisoned us, tore us apart." In the midst of the pain and recrimination, there were also moments of tenderness, of tentative connection. Sarah reached out to Lily, her touch hesitant but filled with longing. Mark shared stories of Emily's childhood, his voice filled with a mixture of pride and sorrow. The process of healing was slow and arduous. There were setbacks, relapses into old patterns of behavior, and moments when it seemed like the family would never truly be whole again. But slowly, tentatively, they began to rebuild. They learned to listen to each other, to empathize with each other's pain, and to forgive each other's flaws. Lily, still grappling with the trauma of her past, found solace in Chloe's unwavering support and the tentative gestures of love from her parents. Chloe, in turn, learned to let go of her anger and resentment, to accept her parents' imperfections, and to embrace the possibility of a renewed connection. The journey towards redemption was far from over, but a fragile sense of hope began to bloom in the midst of the wreckage. The family, scarred but not broken, stood on the precipice of a new beginning, ready to face the future together, bound by the enduring power of love and the unwavering belief in the possibility of healing. A year had passed since the tumultuous events that had shattered and then begun to mend the fractured pieces of the family. The scars of the past remained, faint but visible, a reminder of the darkness they had overcome. But, in their place, new growth had emerged, fragile shoots of hope pushing through the cracked earth. Chloe had finally opened her own bookstore, a cozy haven nestled in a quiet neighborhood. The Twin Leaf, she had named it, a silent tribute to the bond that had endured through years of separation and pain. The shelves were filled with carefully curated selections, each book a testament to the power of stories to heal and connect. The scent of old paper and brewing coffee filled the air, a comforting aroma that drew in customers seeking solace and connection. Lily, slowly reclaiming her identity as Emily, had returned to music. The haunting melodies she had composed during her years of wandering now carried a new depth, a raw honesty that resonated with audiences. She formed a small band, their music a blend of folk and alternative, their lyrics exploring themes of loss, resilience, and the enduring power of hope. Her voice, once filled with pain and uncertainty, now soared with newfound strength and a fragile sense of peace. The family gatherings were still tinged with a bittersweet melancholy, but they were also filled with a growing sense of warmth and acceptance. Sarah and Mark, their faces softened by time and remorse, made a conscious effort to bridge the gaps of the past, to listen without judgment, and to offer unconditional love. There were still moments of difficulty, of course. Emily continued to grapple with the fragmented memories of her childhood, the trauma of her disappearance, and the lingering fear that the darkness might return. Chloe sometimes struggled with the weight of her sister's pain, the desire to protect her warring with the need to allow her to heal at her own pace, and Sarah and Mark carried the burden of their past mistakes, the knowledge that their actions had contributed to their daughter's suffering. But they persevered, bound together by an unbreakable bond of love and a shared commitment to healing. They learned to communicate openly and honestly, to express their needs and fears, and to offer support without judgment. They celebrated small victories, cherished moments of connection, and found strength in their shared journey. One sunny afternoon, the family gathered at Chloe's bookstore. Emily played a soft melody on her guitar, her voice filling the space with a gentle warmth. Sarah and Mark listened, their eyes filled with tears of pride and gratitude. Chloe watched them, a sense of profound peace settling over her. The road to recovery had been long and arduous, but they had finally found their way back to each other. The scars of the past would always remain, but they no longer defined them. They were a family forged in the fires of adversity, bound by an enduring love and filled with a quiet but unwavering hope for the future. The final notes of Emily's song faded away, leaving a lingering silence in the air. Then Sarah reached out and took both of her daughter's hands, her touch gentle but firm. "We're going to be okay," she said, her voice filled with a newfound conviction. "We're going to make it through." And in that moment, surrounded by the warmth of family and the comforting embrace of stories, they knew that it was true. The past could not be erased, but the future was theirs to create, a future filled with hope, healing, and the enduring power of love.